There we go.
You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where we're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, how are y'all doing today out there in beautiful Burleson? Another hot day. I have Police Chief Billy Cordell here today, and most of y'all know him very well. How long have you been in the Burleson Police Department?
I just finished my 8th year.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Where'd you come before that?
I was in Fort Worth. I spent 30 years of service in Fort Worth and retired there as a deputy chief and got to work in a lot of different areas there.
And now you're a chief here?
Yes.
I'm sure there's a lot of differences and a lot of similarities between Fort Worth and Burleson, but I would imagine Burleson is probably, I don't know, less intense. So I don't know. I'm just guessing. But I guess on your end of it, it's all intense.
It is. You know, I mean, obviously the offenses and working and doing what we do, we're expected to do the exact same thing that a large city does. We do it with less people. We wear a lot of hats. You know, sometimes we have the violence in Burleson. You know, I came up in Fort Worth in the mid-'80s, the lower 90s, where the homicide rate, I think in '86, was the highest per capita in the nation. With like 203, 204 homicides. So, I mean, you know, it is a pleasure to be out here where we don't have those types of issues and to get to work with such an incredible community.
Well, and I've lived here since 91. I've taught here since 88. And, you know, there have been violent crimes, but not anything like on a day-to-day basis. It seems like, you know, Burleson's a pretty safe town. I never felt any apprehension about anywhere I've ever been in Burleson, and it's a blessing to live in a town like Burleson. And a lot of it has to do with your department. I mean, that sense of security that we all have comes from having a police force that's very, very effective.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, it really is. I mean, I don't hear any of the kind of stuff you read about in the papers about other police forces. I hear nothing but good things from the people that you want to hear good things from. The people that complain about the cops, maybe giving them a reason, you know, for the cops to be looking in on them. But no, I'm just saying that Burleson has been a very good place to raise my children and to do business here and just go about living here in Burleson. And I attribute a great deal of that to your police force. Yeah,
and that giving credit where credit's due, we've got you know, a deputy chief, Doug Sandifer, that's been here for 38 years.
I know Doug. Yes.
You know, we've got long tenured employees that long before I got here were setting the tone and the reputation for this department and hold the expectations high, and it's a tribute to them over those years. You know, we do step on ourselves here and there, and we do. We apologize and we correct and we move forward and you know, but the tone was set long before I got here, and it's just, you know, that was one of the reasons that attracted me to Burleson, because the reputation of the department and then getting to know the people after I've been here for 8 years. You know, when you get to know the heart of our officers and what their true passion is, and that's serving, it really reassures that our mission is in the right place and we're doing the right things to serve our citizens at a high level.
And I know a couple of your officers from high school days when they were my students, and that's the kind of young men you're hiring. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Officer Warren and Officer Grace are two very fine young men, and if that's the typical hire, then y'all are really fortunate. We're all fortunate. But anyway, I'm going to jump in on a few of the ads, and we're going to talk about Uvalde and what Burleson has in plans for, God forbid, something like that happen around here. Okay, but anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, thank you to Daniel Baisden across at Burleson. I'm sure you're familiar with the Baisdens. You know, they're primary citizens of this community, but Daniel Baisden has a cross at Burleson at 317 Southwest Wilshire for the workouts, and it's pretty heavy-duty stuff, and so look for the building behind the Stone Soup strip mall, I guess you'd call it. But they have all sorts of plans and training programs and trainers, whatever. I think you need to pull your mic closer. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, right. You're about 2 inches, you know.
Thank you.
Anyway, also thank you to Shandy over at his Dogs Deal Realty Group. You know, I guess I should ask you about the real estate, you know, values as it impact the policing of our community. But she's the person you want to talk to if you're going to move in this area, because these houses are going before they even hit the market, and they're getting above asking price. So you need somebody to help you negotiate that. And Shandy's the one to do it. She's also been a lifelong Burleson resident, as has Daniel been, as has this gentleman been, Rex Russell, at the Russell Wealth Group. He operates out of Cleveland, but he does a lot of business here in town. So myfinancialbox.com, hit the link. You get to know him, have some coffee with him. He can help you through the 401ks and 403bs and all those other alphabet arrangements. I get confused. But you watch the stock market's going up and going down. You need somebody to hold your hand and keep you from jumping off the ledge. Also, you need to take Mrs. Cordell here, Southern Gym, on the top of the Windmiller Building. Have you ever been there?
I have not.
You need to be there.
All right.
It's a good place to go. It's a great inventory, but also if you have jewelry to be repaired or designed or cleaned or fixed, she could do all those things. My wife works there this summer, so
okay.
Yeah, it's a good place.
Good.
And they got a lot of good customers on top of the Windmiller Building, and they're going to be at the bottom of the Windmiller Building. Hopefully, you won't have to make a lot of stops over there, but I bet it's really nice stuff. I mean, and they got security and all, but
Super.
Anyway. Also, you may know this, Hot Works over on 731, the workout, different type of workout. It's that infrared workout. So you have all these different things, Pilates and rowing and biking and aerobics and all this other business, and they do it in an infrared environment, so you don't really feel overheated, but it does the same type of impact, and it's a really good program. A lot of people I know have gotten into it, and they just swear by it. So, And Mandy Harden with Creative Concepts by Mandy makes a lot of promotional items. I hope tomorrow I'll have my coffee cups and hats, or at least they'll be coming soon because I ordered some stuff, and everybody would want a Mr. Allard's Neighborhood coffee cup. I mean, my goodness, only the cool people have them. But anyway, back to the matter at hand. Now, I was very glad to see us send a couple of our officers down to Uvalde. It's a good sign of solidarity with another community that was in a great deal of pain and distress. And I thought it was a wonderful gesture. I assume they're back now.
They are.
Yeah. But it was a good thing to do. And I can only imagine a small town like Uvalde, smaller than us, and they lose 19 children. They'll never get over that.
No.
It's never going to be the same town. Now, I know that we have a plan in place because I've seen it in action, actually. I was going to tell you an anecdote at the beginning of the show, but my thing was my last year there, I was working at the school on a Saturday morning, and I see one police car pull up. I see another one pull up. I see a SWAT team pull up. And I'm like, oh, my God, what's going on? I thought maybe something was really happening. And I had the door open in my room, so an officer came down and said, Mr. Allard, you're going to have to go. We're doing a drill here, and, on a school shooting drill. Mm-hmm. So I had to postpone doing my work and do it some other time because they didn't want me getting in the way. And, but actually I was very reassured that we were being so proactive about these things. I mean, this is before the shooting in Florida, before, obviously, Uvalde, or before other school shootings. It was probably about 3 or 4 years after the Connecticut one. And I'm just glad that we were being so proactive. Yeah. But we have a lot of plans like that in place for the whole town, don't we?
Yes. So I appreciate you recognizing that because, a lot of things, a lot of attention right now is being focused on Uvalde, and as it should be. And I appreciate your comments of us sending officers down there. We sent 2 officers down there. Then we sent 2 former communications folks that help work in the Emergency Operations Center. The Texas Police Chiefs Association sent out, and we knew that was coming because that's a town of around 16,000. They don't have the resources to take on so many things that were happening and the dynamics that were happening and the funerals of all of that all of that town had to deal with. So sending them down there was the right thing to do. The citizens down there were very appreciative that we sent officers down there, and that's just to go and help them get over the really, really tough days that were following that. And we were glad to do that. So when you look at the path that we've had through BISD, we've got such a great relationship with our partners over there, and we work side by side. We stay in our lane, they stay in their lanes. Kind of the rule of thumb of what we try to do. But we all have the common mission of doing everything we can to protect the students, the teachers, the admin that work in those schools, as we're concerned about that every single day. Across the nation, I guess in 1999, you saw Columbine was one of the first school shootings, and the tactics at that time, they called in SWAT teams to come in and handle that. we have progressed since then to where it moved to you get 4 officers there and go to the day's time is whoever's there goes. If active shots are being fired, you engage as quick as you can, as it should be. So you can't just stop and do this in one time and say, okay, we've trained for that. So we do these active shooter trainings in the summertime when the kids are out, obviously.
This was actually in the fall, and
maybe on a fall break,
right? No, but it wasn't when school activities were going on. I'll put it that way. I mean, it wasn't like there was, Saturday a lot of things go on at the campuses, but it wasn't. There was nobody there but me and a couple other teachers. So
and we try to coordinate that when we can get a hallway or something that we can use in there and put some kind of realistic scenario in place. And we often train well beyond just the officers of Burleson PD because we have 3 Joshua ISD schools that are in the city limits of Burleson, and that's not unusual across the cities that you overlap. So we invite other agencies to come in and train with us. I think it's important because they're the ones that are going to be the first responders to get there and help us, and we need to all be on the same page with what our goal is and how we do that. And we're always, every agency is getting new officers, and practical scenarios are the best way to train. That's the most meaningful way to train. We can talk about it in a classroom all day long, but then you go out and you do an exercise, and that helps solidify that. It also helps you get through some of the problems that you encounter on that. We train with our fire department, because they're going to be in there. Fire department used to wait and sit back and say, gosh, when y'all get the scene cleared, and then we'll come in and we'll do that. But the size of these schools now, you may be a quarter of a mile from the front entrance to where you're going. So most people that are in active shooting, they're shot, they die because they bleed to death. So it's imperative that we get people in there very, very quickly, and we train within those circles so that left hand, right hand knows what's going on, and we debrief everything. And so this year we're planning on doing a couple active shooter scenarios in there, but we're also going to run all of our officers through a 2-day course just in classroom, just to update them on everything that's going on now, because the dynamic always changes. You're familiar with Alert, most people are, the Alert training, the CRAZE training, but there's some things that have changed in that we want to update all of our officers prior to going in and doing that scenario-based training. So,
well, that's reassuring to me as a citizen, and hopefully to the people listening or seeing this show later, that our police are not just waiting for something to happen and hoping they're prepared, but they're actively, aggressively preparing for it. Yeah. And the thing about it, you mentioned in your comment there about how big these schools are. Even if we have SROs on campus, it's going to be very difficult to prevent this from starting, but hopefully we can prevent this from getting worse, like at Uvalde.
Yes. Or
that the school situation in Florida at Plantation High School. And in both of those cases, and I don't know if you're wanting to talk about your other departments, fellow departments, but in both those cases, there was security there, and it failed.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been very critical of the Uvalde police, and I know you're not going to just jump on that as well, but here's a good opportunity for you to say that there will not be a Uvalde-type reaction or response here in Burleson.
Yeah. When you look at it, and it's hard to, from my seat, to second guess what happened in there. It seems like, and what you see on the news, a lot of failures occurred, and when that comes out, just like when in Columbine and many other places, you look at that as an opportunity to learn. And from that, our rules are pretty simple. You get one officer, like I said, you have one officer, and we have somebody shooting in there, they're to go and engage. And we have circled back around with all of our officers, and I've asked that question: are you going to engage? It's your job to go in there and engage. And the answer is yes. I guess the proof is in if heaven forbid it happens here, then we'll see how we respond to that. Last year we brought in, because of the size, there's over an average of over 1,800 students in BHS and CHS, each of those, and the geography of that building, they're very spread out, a lot of halls and things like that.
So a lot of entrances in there.
A lot of entrances. I think CHS has over 30 points of entry, and BHS over 20, and so we added 2 school resource officers last year's budget, and we doubled up in the high schools because of the size of the school and the number of these issues that they deal with, and to be able to provide more coverage within those schools. But we've trained. We know what the mission is, and you know what your job is. And I fully expect and would be surprised, frankly, if we had a situation where our officers didn't engage when shots are being fired. And in that transition, I think there's some discrepancies in whether this was considered an active shooter. Then you hear the other reports come out that they were on the phone with 911. And again, we just got to wait and see what the final result is and what we can learn from that. But if there's shots being fired in there, our officers better be in there engaging them.
And all the officers I've met, I have 100% confidence they'd be the first one on the scene.
Right.
I mentioned a few of the gentlemen I worked with at BHS. Some are retired now, and one you said Mike Alley. He works for the system in a civilian capacity now, because I remember he broke his leg very badly and was disabled from that. But in Officer Schaefer over at Centennial, I have 100% confidence that they're going to be there when it gets hairy, and that's reassuring. Now, we don't have SROs though on every Burleson campus, so do we?
That's correct.
And is that a goal of y'all's?
Well, I mean, there's talks right now between BISD and the city of Burleson, of course, our department, as to what we're going to take the next steps. And and those talks, they were 3 years ago, 2 years ago. We're looking at how we want to move forward with that. I can't talk about the specifics of that because it's got to go before two governing bodies for approval, and it hasn't even been announced to them. So, but we have had conversations this year multiple times, just to look at our plan and stuff. And I'm gonna throw some stuff out that they did. There was a recent school board meeting. I'm gonna get my glasses on here. There was a recent school board meeting where they talked about some of this, and it was a very positive meeting. I talked to a couple people that with BISD were there, and the citizens that came in had a lot of good suggestions, a lot of good comments, and it was just all aimed at the same mission, and that's protecting our schools. And but a lot of people don't realize this, but every 3 years now, we've got 8 school resource officers, 1 supervisor, and 7 officers that handle our secondary level schools. We put a supervisor in there a couple years ago, and the reason we did that, Brad, was we wanted somebody at a supervisory level that coordinates all of the other 7 officers and works closely with BISD to make sure that we are hitting the mark on our safety and our security plans, and to make sure that those are all on board. So BISD has a security council, if you will, or a committee that sole job is looking at all of these things, and certainly our SROs are a part of that. But every 3 years, the Texas School Safety Center conducts a statewide survey, and they want to document the status of school safety within all of our schools. So there's 1,022 districts that they look at, and they just did that recently, and they're looking at things like, do we have a multi-hazard emergency operations plan in place? Do we have an active shooter program? Some of the things that we're talking about where we go in there and train and things like that. So out of the 1,022 districts, BISD's emergency plan was one of only 67 districts that was deemed sufficient, meaning it met the common or best practices.
Wow.
One of 67 out of 1,022. Now, when you go to the active shooter program, out of the 1,022 districts, BISD was one of 200 that was deemed to have a viable active shooter program. So, those are on top of the things that we're doing. Those are important pieces of this. And you talk about, we train with BISD, with BPD, BFD, our fire department. This year, and this isn't the first year that we do this, so this year when the teachers come back in and you get turnover on teachers, they're going to be in these their orientation week, and we will have our supervisors will be in there teaching CRAZE, which is a civilian response to active shooter events, and Stop the Bleed program. So, we're going to be in there teaching and working directly with these teachers and staff on these things ahead of time. We talked about the ability for us to go in and do active shooter situations. We've worked for a number of years. This is something I put in place a few years back, where we work very closely with our counselors, in particular the crisis counselor, so that if we have an issue we're dealing with, or BISD has an issue they're dealing with, we coordinate with them and have regular conversations to make sure that they know, hey, gosh, we dealt with some mental health issues here. Let's make sure that we get that person in to visit with you, because all of us are concerned about mental health issues.
Well, and I think that's one thing that the state of Texas has to step up its game on, is providing the funds for this kind of thing, for not just school safety, but for mental health resources. And I had a podcast about a little after the Uvalde incident, and that was one of my main points was that we could talk about preparing and whatever else, but we need to have the funding, and I'd like to see an SRO in every school because obviously there was an elementary school in Uvalde, and so. And some people say, well, that's very unfortunate, but that's life in the 21st century now, unfortunately. And now these SROs are jointly funded, are they not?
They are. It's again, it's a true partnership, a 50-50, and that's why we've got two governing bodies that'll make those decisions. And look, I'd love to have an SRO in every school as well. I think all of us feel more comfortable with that. I certainly would. But I mean, it comes down to the funding, and if if funding were no obstacle, we can do an awful lot. But there's a lot of narratives out there, and you've got to look at what can we do reasonably and what can we do practically. You hear those narratives out there. We just need one point of entrance and exit.
No, you can't do that.
And you worked in the schools, and
right.
And while is that safer to do it that way? Yes. Is it practical because of the way the school is spread out and they're going out back to go to an athletic center or going to this, that, and the other? And again, if you get metal detectors at all these doors are saying you've got to staff all of those. And, it's just, what's reasonable, what's practical, and how do we best.
I'm sure the Fire Marshal, Stacy Singleton, would have something to say about one entrance. I mean, that's just asking for
absolutely
another tragic situation. It's not possible. Now, I know that my last few years at BHS, at least, it's my most familiar place. They try to do some security and with monitored the doors and things like that, put alarm systems in, and it was somewhat effective. But it's still it's very, very difficult to have a perfectly secure environment.
Yeah.
And I think we do the best we can, not just with the funding, but just what is possibly human wise,
Sure.
Because it's somebody that has evil intent is going to get in that door. Our hope is that we're able to stop him from fulfilling his evil intent.
Exactly.
And it's just changed from when I started teaching school. It never even crossed my mind when I began at the junior high at Hughes and then went to the high school. It never crossed my mind that there'd be a situation like that. And then Columbine hit, and then Newtown hit, and then on and on. It's like, and people say, well, the data shows that these aren't more common than they used to be, just to have more publicity about them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's still bad, and there's no rationalization for it.
Well, I mean, when I was going to school, we had tornado drills and fire drills and stuff. Now you have active shooter things that we're training in there, and it's sad that we're at this point, frankly. But you're right. You can't plan for every scenario in there and be prepared for all that. So what we really focus on is our response.
Well, the only times in my career actually had real active shooter situations where it was not BHS, but it was somebody I think was showing a gun off at the Shell station down the street.
Yeah.
And I think another one had to do with Wells Fargo down the street, and so they didn't want that building to be accessed by somebody on the run. And so I was locked up with my second period for like 2.5 hours. I hadn't earned any money right there, but there have been real uses for these drills. It isn't just something to kill time with. And I've actually gone to 2 or 3 tornadoes at BHS over the years, and so the drills are necessary.
Yeah,
and that's just life now as it is. And as far as getting the SROs on campus and all that, is there any kind of state funding, state sources you can access? I mean, Burleson's growing and its tax base is growing, but that's still a significant investment.
It is.
Is there a source at Austin that we could access?
For school resource officers, I'm not aware of one.
Okay.
We split that 50-50 with ISD and we move forward.
Well, that's kind of what I'm talking about, that the state of Texas needs to pick up its game on that because it's pretty important. Anyway, I want to run through the second round of commercials, and then we're going to talk about other Burleson police-related events around town, not just with the schools. My bet is you've been in this place before, Our Place Restaurant. You've been there more than once? Yeah.
Recently?
Yeah, I was there yesterday. I'll be there Thursday. I'm in a networking group, and I do a lot of my business there and whatnot. But Our Place Restaurant, Otto's quite the character, and he's a very generous man and with the community. and it's a great place to go, and it's a very comfortable place. And every time I go there, particularly like Thursday mornings, every other Thursday morning, I go there with some men from my Sunday school class, and there's always 6 to 8 police officers in there. I know it gives them a little discount or whatnot, but it's very reassuring, see officers in there for lunch and or breakfast. It's like his own personal security. I know, but our place, it's on the highway in Allsbury. You'll know where it is. All right. Also, Wild Cigar and Culture. Are you a cigar smoker?
I am not.
Well, that's a good place to get a cigar if you ever become one or know of one you want to give a gift to. It's on the Standard, and it's a very nice place. And I hope you haven't had to make any calls there because it's not that kind of place. It's it's a class joint. It isn't some bunch of hoods. It's a nice place. You get a decent cigar, decent drink, have conversation, do business there. I dropped in to get a gift certificate for my son-in-law who likes cigars. It was like a Wednesday afternoon, and it was about 3/4 full, and there's a lot of business-oriented stuff going on. I thought that's a good place to do it. So Wild Cigar and Culture. Also, in Proactive Payment Solutions, this is one of my former students named Antonio Basalo, who does point-of-sales operations, does a lot of internet business workups for you. It helps you get the best rates on the credit cards and the best deals on point-of-sales operations and whatnot. So Proactive Payment Solutions will help you save some money. So check his website, proactivepaymentsolution.com, and talk to Antonio, and he can help save you some money. Also, you probably know this person well, Tiffany Griffin at Local Life Magazine. Local Life TX is up and has all these specials and deals, and the advertising is really, really good. It's one of the best things Burleson has going for it. 30,000 homes get the hard copy, and it does work. I hear this from several people that advertise in that. And I'm sure that y'all coordinate with her some one of those events that she does.
Yes.
Like the 4th of July one that's coming up.
Yeah, coming up.
Yeah. And she does a really good job with that. And also, we want to make sure we remember this week the diaper drive over at City Market's going on for the Next Step Women's Centers, Megan Swearingen. I keep calling her Hollowell. That's her maiden name. That's an old habit of a teacher, I suppose. But Megan Swearingen will ask you nicely, and you can't say no to her, to go over to Bransom's. Oh, see, there you go.
There you go.
If it's old timers, we'll go over to City Market and buy a pack of diapers, leave it at the front counter. They'll take it to the Next Step, and they'll take care of it. So it's going on between now and Thursday. Anyway, now, as far as other security-related events, the town, of course, as we all know, is growing like a weed, and I'm sure that puts pressure on the police force, because I know you try to keep up with it, but are you right now looking to add on to the staff?
Yeah, we always are looking to add on. We did a 5-year strategic plan. We're in the 2nd year, so this year the budget is requesting, at present, like I said, we're in conversation with BISD, so I won't talk about any of that. But what we had in our strategic plan was to add lieutenants, phase in a lieutenant rank. We do not have middle-level managers, and we need to add to that. We put a lot of officers in place over the past. I think when I started here, we had 58 sworn, somewhere around that, and we're up to 84 now. So we'll continue to try to grow this department with the city to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our citizens. So this year we're asking for 2 lieutenants positions with the phase-in of 5 over the next 3 years. We're asking for another detective position. And then we need to catch up on some of our civilian. We often forget about our civilian positions. So our property room, for example, it's at it's under a 400% increase in the amount of property we've been taking in there over the last couple of years, and I know the facility itself is, we're busting at seams inside that property room, but to manage that is important. So we're asking for another property rooms clerk and then another records person. We do all of the open records requests for the Burleson Police Department part of the city, where the city will get 4,000 open records requests per year. We have about 3,200 of those, and a lot of that's
open
video.
record requests. What are they requesting?
Any and everything. Reports, video. Dash cam, body cam videos. Anything that we do. Strategic plans, all kinds of things. Anything that we do, we'll get open records requests for it.
Well, and that's, I should emphasize that these plans aren't held in some secret vault somewhere. They're available for the public. Anybody can access them and see what the plans are.
There's rules.
I mean,
rules
yeah.
on open records, yeah. And
Well,
security plans are not something that we would typically share because of the repeat. We're going to do the same things in our security plan. We don't want to give that away.
I guess I misspoke. The way I meant is that this is not something that's done without open meetings and without proper supervision. It's not done in secret. It's not done in back room somewhere.
Yeah.
Whether I didn't expect you really just hand over your plans because somebody may use that against you, but I'm just saying that we should have confidence that these plans are being created in a very public, democratic way, so to speak. And so, but when we add police officers, though, it isn't just salary. I mean, we have to have new vehicles. We have to have space for them. We have to have the equipment for them. I mean, it's a very expensive proposition to add even one officer, I'd imagine.
Yeah, and that's, when you look at that, that's we often, year one cost or startup cost, and then year two is different because the vehicles, these are $70,000, $75,000 vehicles. I think the equipment now that we install in these vehicles is more expensive than the vehicle itself.
Oh, boy.
Well, then you've got, all of your uniforms and weapons and radios and all of that. And so the startup for one officer, yes, that can get quite expensive.
Is there any kind of grant for that? I know that there have been in the past, but I don't know if they're still active, where communities could access grants and have it funded for about 3 years, and after that it was on your ticket, so to speak. The Burleson ISD has had grants of that nature.
Yeah, and we do receive grants, and I'll give you an example. Our Victims Assistance Coordinator, when I started here, she was a part-time employee, 20 hours a week, and the need was much greater than that. So we wrote a grant through the Office of the Governor, and COG, our Council of Government, vets all of that out, and we got the 3-year grant for that position. We're actually applying, and we scored very well. We had to reapply after 3 years, scored very well on that. We got grants for our use of force training simulator, for different things throughout the department that we do. There was, and I don't know if it's still available now, this would have been in the early 90s, there was COPS grants that came out for community policing to be able to obtain up to 10 officers, and the salary was paid up front, and then they slowly wean you off to where they become your salary. So you have to plan ahead 3 or 4 years, the turnaround on that, and all of a sudden, your city has to be able to absorb the full cost.
I remember that. It was a federal plan, mid-90s and whatnot. Part of a big comprehensive crime bill, I remember that Mr. Clinton was very proud of. But, we look at what's going on around the country. And it seems like levels of violence and aggressive crimes and property theft and whatnot is getting out of hand, particularly in some of these cities that are very poorly policed and very poorly prosecuted, which I do not believe for a moment it happens here. But are we still subject to those same kind of things happening?
Well, absolutely we are. I mean, we're not immune from, if you find the crime-free city, I want to be the chief there, right? We're not immune from crime here. We don't have the level of violent crimes that you see in some of the larger cities, but we certainly have our crimes here and there. Assaults this year, if you look at, and I just did on June the 6th, so if you want to go back and get more details on the presentation through council, I did an annual review and looked at all of our offenses. We saw, when we're comparing 2020 to 2021, we compare year to year. So 2020 was a COVID year where you had a lot of the retail stores closed down. You had stay-at-home orders. So, crimes that when you're at work, somebody come in and steal something out of your house, you didn't see as many of those types of crimes. We actually had a reduction in burglary motor vehicles, theft offenses, but then this year we're back on a parallel track and a normal track if you track it over the years.
But is that on like a per capita basis? Because we're a lot bigger than we were, say, 5 years ago. And so if we said, okay, from 2015 to today, this type of crime has risen, is it in the same proportion as the growth of our city? Yeah,
and if you go back and look at that presentation, so we package numbers in different ways. And so the very first slides talk about the raw numbers. And I always qualify where I get these numbers from. So we pull those from a records management system because we can get you a more recent snapshot. We can compare 2020 and 2021, and we always go into the first quarter of 2022. Now, those are not the official numbers that go to the FBI because the FBI is about a year and a half behind on packaging. So we don't have the 2021 numbers, the official numbers. But it's more important for me to tell you what's going on this year than it was a year and a half ago, right? So we do have the trends. Those are per capita crimes, and then we trend those down and we compare them, our stats to some neighboring cities, Mansfield, Fort Worth, the state and the national crime trends, and those are the FBI numbers. Just to kind of give you an idea how that graph flows. We're doing up and down, and where do we fit in the scheme so that you can get a better understanding and idea. And again, that's should be online from the June 6th presentation I did.
June 6th, okay, good. Yeah. I'm just thinking though, the first 20 years I lived here, any kind of crime that involved homicide was exceptionally rare. And I'm not saying we're having a bunch of that now, but we do seem to, around this whole region, seem to be seeing a lot more of that. And we've seen a lot more vandalism or shoplifting or all these other things, but particularly the aggressive crimes of a violent nature.
Yeah.
And I just, I know Burleson's not immune, but I just wondered if we were having a real spike in that, or we got that under control.
Well, I mean, we had a spike in 2018, I believe it was. We had 5 homicides that year. We will normally have 1 or 2. I think last year we had 2. Both of them have been solved. In my 8 years here, we've been able to solve all of the homicides, and a lot of that comes from some of the technology that we have implemented to be able to process cell phones in a much faster manner. Cell phones, we carry a whole world on cell phones.
Well, that was a year ago, April, as we know, we had an officer that was shot. That was shocking to me.
Yeah.
That's something you hear about in the big cities.
Yeah.
And thank God he survived, and I assume he's still on duty and doing well. But still, to me, that was a real shocking event. It was like a real world event because, you hear about these kind of things happen in Dallas or, New York City or Chicago or something like that. You don't hear about that in Burleson. Yeah,
but I go back in the 6 months after I got here, we had 2 officers that were involved in a shooting, and both of them were shot. They both survived, did very well, came back to work, and then we had 2 officers and a constable that were involved in a shooting with an individual, and then Officer Lott. So while it's you go back in here and say you have 5 officers either involved in a shooting or shot. In the 8 years I've been here, and that seems like an awful lot for here. But we're a growing community, and with growing issues. We don't have the number of homicides, that other places have. You look around the country now, Fort Worth and other big cities, they're seeing a lot of violence that's coming out.
Well, what also, I hear a lot of stories about narcotics, and because we're right on I-35, and that we're a transit point for that and for trafficking of young people.
Yeah.
Have you all encountered a lot of that as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And in part of this presentation on the 6th, I'll touch base on some of it here, but I had 6 slides on that. 3 of them from our strategic response team, and then 3 slides I think it was from our STOP, which is a Stop the Offender program. That is our Johnson County-wide narcotics team. And we're used to methamphetamines, and we still see a lot of methamphetamines in this area, Johnson County, Burleson.
Right.
But what we're seeing, the trends of the synthetic opioids, the fentanyls that are so dangerous. And if you look at that presentation, there's an awful lot of fentanyl being confiscated here and distributed. We go on a lot of, and it's so dangerous. Parents, talk to your kids about this. Do some research on fentanyl and how dangerous it is. There's fentanyl and carfentanil. And it's being packaged in a synthetic opioid where you don't think, they call them Perk 30s tablets, and try to learn some of the lingo and stuff, because one dose of that could be fatal to your child, and we've had several overdoses here with regards to that. And we had one of the largest fentanyl seizures. I know it was in the state of Texas, but a few years back, and there was somebody moving into a rental property, and the landlord went over and said, "This doesn't look right, called us," and it ended up being an enormous amount of fentanyl. So it's so prevalent in the society now, but it's so dangerous, and they may not get a do-over.
Well, and my understanding was, because we're right on the edge of DFW, that Burleson's a prime location for this kind of distribution point. And with the I-35, like I mentioned, and also with a lot of the unincorporated area in Johnson County, that this is where they're going to be looking to distribute this kind of stuff.
Sure.
And the same with human trafficking as well. I've had a show with that. It's been a little while now, but they told me that you'd be surprised or shocked or highly disappointed about the number of human trafficking cases that we're having to experience here in this community. And see, for a lot of us, like myself, we just go about our business. You see this side of the community. I know you probably think 99% of the community are great people, but you see that 1% that they're not.
Yeah.
And it must be kind of tough sometimes to deal with that. By the way, Sarah Carlson's put your PowerPoint presentation on the show, and so people that see the show, they can access your PowerPoints.
Super.
But I mean, that's a side of Burleson that most of us don't see. I mean, I just go about my business. I go to the store, I go to church, I go here, and I don't really think about one of the biggest fentanyl busts in Texas occurring in my hometown, or that we have a location that's dealing human trafficking.
Yeah.
For that, we thank you. I mean, because somebody has to do it, but I think it's maybe a testament to you and your department that I don't think about it all the time. I don't worry about being accosted in the street, or I don't worry about going into HEB or City Market and wonder if it's going to be held up or something like that. So I guess that's a tribute to your department.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the prevalence and the extent to which social media impacts us. And I've talked about this before, and it's when you look at social media, and you can go out and you can post whatever you want to post, completely inaccurate, and the fear of crime is real. People will see that post and they believe that to be 100%. Now we've gotten folks that now, fortunately, will send a message to us and say, "Hey, is there any validity to this?" And we vet those things. We've had things at the large retail stores where it said, there's a kidnapping inside that store of my husband's had the young baby in there, and they tried to take the baby. And first thing we do is we go back and did we get a 911 call? Did we look at that? Then we work with the security at this particular store, and they don't have anything on it. And you go, wait a minute. You try to kidnap a baby and you're not calling 911. But we spend a considerable amount of time going back and looking at video to try to dispel those rumors, and we get that stuff all of the time. We talked about schools. We get something. Don't go to CHS or BHS tomorrow because there's going to be a shooting, and it that fear embraces the parents, and oh my gosh. And we've actually woken up SROs in the middle of the night and said, Brad Schaefer, go look at Centennial. This is the tile in the bathroom for this Instagram or whatever post it was done on. Is that the tile we have in our bathrooms? But when they say BHS, is that Burleson High School? Is it Brewer High School? Is it Centennial High School or Crowley High School or any one of a number of schools? They just say the initials and we all assume. But we do a lot of vetting behind the scene, and a lot of things come to light over social media, and nobody screens that. They can just post whatever they want, and then we spend time trying to vet that.
Well, coming down, we're getting close on time. I'd like to ask about the bond issue. I know you don't, all the details aren't worked out, and they won't be for a while, but how is this going to help y'all do what we need y'all to do in this town?
Well, I appreciate this opportunity to speak about the bond. So I'm going to give you a little background and a little history on this. So in 2009, GSBS architectural firm did a feasibility study on the space needs for the Burleson Police Department looking in the future. In 2009, they said we needed 32,000 square feet. In 2015, we moved into the existing building a total of 24,000 square feet. It did not have a holding facility in that. We contract with Mansfield. At some point, we're going to need to put our own holding facility in. So we moved in there 8,000 square feet below what we needed, what was recommended 13 years ago, correct?
Wait, I want to interrupt just a moment. You telling me that if you arrest somebody and they need to be held overnight or for a definite period of time, you have to drive them all the way to Mansfield to
We
do
drive them to Mansfield,
Oh,
yes.
my goodness.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons we could spend a whole show talking about the whys of that.
Yeah.
But it's in the best interest. But when we used to manage a holding facility there, and then, of course we didn't have full-time jail staff, so we were pulling officers off the street to do all the things within that jail, which takes people off of the streets. And we actually looked at that very closely, the amount of time that we're doing to keep and house prisoners in that jail. even for a short duration, and it was actually less time to take them over, drop them off at Mansfield, and come back. So, but at some point we're going to have our own facility.
Absolutely.
So we came back in this year looking at a bond, and we hired BRW, was an architectural firm, to come in and met with all of our staff and said, what is it we need within our department? We put a 15-year projection on that, because you build for today, by the time the building is built 3 or 4 years from now, you're way behind. Mm-hmm. So the council put together a bond committee, and they each nominated a couple people, and we spent quite a bit of time presenting to the bond committee. What we wanted to do was, through BRW, was to give us 4 options and then an a la carte menu, if you will. So if we wanted to add a jail, what size jail would that be, and then how much would that cost us? So they came back with 4 different options, starting at 53,000 square feet at a cost, and I'm looking at the numbers here, so I'll give you accurate stuff. 53,000 square feet, costing around $30.4 million. Option B was 58,000 square feet. That runs it up to $33.6. Option C, which was our recommendation and the bond committee's unanimous recommendation, was 62.5, and that's 36.4. Then option D was 69,000, and that's $52.4 million. So when you look at those options, and those did not, option D included a holding facility. What that did was a complete remodel of the inside of our existing facility to reallocate the spaces. That's the best way to do it. But we felt like we did not need to go in. We're still paying debt on that building to go in and remodel that building.
Right.
Some of the major components within that, obviously the site work is very expensive. Over $4 million for the site work. There's like a $1.2 million remodel of that facility itself. And then you've got all the new spaces in there, and we've got, these are the space needs, but it wasn't an architectural plan that says how much space goes here and how much space goes there. We looked at the communications group as a separate entity from us, but they're housed within our building. That would include a 3,000 square foot footprint for them, and now there's been talk about moving them, separating them from our facility. One of the things that I'm looking at, and this is something I think that's very important for the future of this department, is having a good training facility. We've got rooms in the building, and we want to become a training provider. The rooms in the building, one of them has 7 different purposes, so you have to repurpose that. I told you about the grant we got for the use of force training simulator, so that's one function. The defensive tactics is another function in there, a computer lab, all these needs, and you have to repurpose that room every time. What I want in becoming a training provider is to put together about an 8,000 square foot training facility that separates these functions out, that encourage impromptu training. The important thing there is to have 2 rooms that are divided, that can be joined together through that hard accordion wall, 50 each, so that we can bring classroom training in here. There's circuits of people that come around, experts in their fields, and do training, and if they come in and we host that, then we usually get anywhere from 2 to 4 slots in that free. So, I did some work, and I think it's 83% of our budget was spent on registrations, and if we can get that in our backyard for free, we're not paying per diem, we're not paying hotel. We want to eliminate all that, but nonetheless, we'll be able to get our officers trained at a higher level. And in this day and time, training, I mean, you can't train too much for this job.
Right, and we said earlier in the show, you're still looking to hire. What are the qualifications to be an officer in this force?
Well, I mean, you have to, have the age requirement, 21, and then, oh man, you're testing me here. Age 21, we require 30 hours of college, or there can be if I remember right, a military substitute in that. We do have a lateral entry program that if you've been at another location that's a compatible size and come in, you still, if you're already certified through TCOL, that's our licensing agency, then you come in and we start you through field training, teach you the policies and procedures, the geography of Burleson, and then get you turned loose quicker. If you have to go to the academy, that adds about 4 months to it as well. Now,
do you get most of these applicants are homegrown, or do you get people like from Arlington or Mansfield applying to join this force?
Yeah, it's around this area. We love it. we've had actually 3 explorers that came through the Explorer program within BPD that are officers now, and that's we enjoy that. We have several officers that graduated out of the Burleson ISD system, which is, we love that as well. But yeah, we'll get officers from different areas. We've got the lateral entry program kind of gives you an ability to host other agencies, to come in and get some experience in there, which is great. The salary, we in the academy, I think you started while you're in the academy uncertified is around $63,000. It's on our website.
It's good money.
And then your first year is $68,000. But here's why.
Yeah.
We have had to increase our salaries because everyone else is increasing your salary, and we're in competition with, the Fort Worth, the Arlington, the Mansfields, Grand Prairies, and you've got to maintain that pace to be able to get those applicants here. And we just gave a test. They're going to give we just had an application process closed. The first test for that group is today. But we used to get around 50 applications. We got 19 because so many other agencies are hiring. So it's a lot harder to get applicants in here and then get them through the process to make sure they meet the standards that we want and get them hired.
That's interesting. I mean, and I don't think is overpay police, because what we ask them to do every day, I'm sure most days are pretty routine, but there's that one day that it's not.
Right.
And we're going to need a professional, experienced force. Yeah. And I feel like we have one here. And I talked to Shandy, my real estate sponsor, and she says, among other things that attract people to move to Burleson is the police department and the fire department, because they feel like they're being well taken care of. And they also look at the schools and, and other amenities like that. But that is a factor in bringing people in this town. And it's a factor, I'm quite sure, I had Alex Phillips on yesterday, and I really didn't make this point directly, but I bet that's a big factor for businesses moving in this community, is what kind of security they're going to have.
Sure.
And that's a testament to y'all.
Yeah, and we started because I believe in training so much and wanted over and beyond what a city budget could afford. So we started Burleson Police Foundation in 2016, a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have a board of directors that manage that, and the donations go toward the our annual banquet where we honor outstanding service of our folks, training and equipment over and beyond what you expect. So we've sent officers to accelerated mental health schools, supervisor schools, drug interdiction schools, all funded from this nonprofit on there. And then equipment-wise, our first drone, I wanted to start a drone program. Our first drone was purchased by this group, and now we have a complete drone program. So many things that they do to give our officers the tools that they need to be able to go out and do their job, and to give us an ability to provide them a higher level of safety. An aerial platform, we can stream that video back to 10 different places. So when we have a command post going, we're streaming live video in there. So 4th of July, we will be running the drones out there, and we're streaming live video into that command post, so they have situational awareness. And those things, we can't all afford a helicopter, but you can afford a drone, and you can accomplish a lot. And we show this stuff off. We have open houses and kids coming in and try to be transparent with what we do and the mission of all this, and it's a lot of fun.
I remember going to that when I was a little kid, living in Plano and Richardson, have that kind of thing. That was kind of neat. Well, I'm going to run through the ads real quickly, and then I'll give you the last word. You can tell the vast listening audience here what you'd like them to know about Burleson PD and their community. Thank you, Daniel, CrossFit Burleson, for allowing us to bring this to the people. Hope that you're doing well. Check out their gym over at CrossFit, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Also, Shandy, hope you're doing well. And being busy. I know you probably are, because a lot of people want to move in here, in part because of what we've been talking about in this show. And so I hope you're doing well, and take care of yourself. Also, thank you to Rex. He's quite the character. I've known him for a long, long time. We went to college together. Obviously, he went to class, and I went to the golf course. But www.myfinancialbox.com, hit the link, and you get to know him a little bit, see his introductory video. And also Southern Gym, open right now, and June is a good time to buy jewelry. There's a lot of anniversaries, there's a lot of weddings, graduation gifts, things of that nature. It's all sorts of stuff over there, plus repairs and designs. You need to take Kim over there.
All right. She will remind me.
Yeah, she will. She will. Because my wife I told her she works there, and she comes in and goes, "Oh, this and this. I want to buy this. I want to buy this." I'm like, "Hey, this is supposed to be a money-making situation, not a costing me money." But there you are. Anyway, thank you to Michelle over at Hotworks. I know you're busy between the two shops, but she has one in Las Colinas as well. And I'm sure that things are going well because she's a very high energy person. And I think she gets that from her workout regimen at Hotworks. So check it out. Also, Mandy, hope you're doing well. See you tomorrow, hopefully, at the meetings, networking meetings at Creative Concepts by Mandy. So if you're looking for promotional items, hats and cups and pins and shirts. She got the whole thing. Taylor recommends her. And if Taylor recommends her, that means a lot. Our Place, everybody knows Our Place and Otto. I always get cracked up because his son Ryan does all the heavy lifting, and then Otto walks around like Dean Martin, or some sort of, celebrity or something. It's funny to watch. But there you go, Our Place Restaurant. Also, by the way, we're going to have him on in about a month. We're going to talk about his having run a restaurant during inflationary periods, and it's not easy. Same with Chris at Wild Cigar and Culture. I know you're not, like you said, you're not into cigars, but he's become known regionally and nationally for his humidor. He's a lot of big time outfits that come and sponsor things at his humidor at his bar because it's one of the best around. And so, people in that culture know these names and they're very impressed. So Wild Cigar and Culture, good place to do a little business. ProactivePaymentSolutions.com, help you with your online business, POS systems, or your invoicing systems, all the above. Talk to Antonio. We could help save you some money. And, of course, Tiffany, she has that 4th of July thing coming up, so check that out. It's over at the Standard, and there's going to be all sorts of events. So check the QR code and the magazine plus her website. Plus, there's also the local heroes, hometown heroes. So, check that QR code out and can nominate somebody for hometown hero. And then lastly, the next step, diaper drive over at City Market. When you go buy your groceries, just buy a pack of diapers, drop it off, they'll deliver it. It's a big thing. I've had them on several times, and I will have them on several times. One of my favorite nonprofits in this community. So, you got the last say. What would you like for the people of Burleson to know about their police force?
Well, I'll start by you've mentioned my wife a couple times and say thank you to her because I've been in this business a long time, 32 years. We're coming up on an anniversary, and if there's ever anybody that was a harshest critic, but the best shoulder to lean on, thank you to my wife, Kim. The department. So many things I could say about this department, but one of the things I want to highlight is the integrity of this department. What I have found since I've been here in 8 years is that the integrity is at a very high level throughout this department. The citizens support this, and we thank you so much for supporting our department. You're always there to back us up and to help us. And one of the things that occurs not randomly, but because what we talked about earlier with the department and those that have been around here a long time that have done their best to serve at a high level and continue to serve. So I'll talk a little bit about police legitimacy, and that is the trust that our community has in us, built on that integrity over time. And I believe that we have a high level of trust and transparency within the department, as well as what our citizens see and how we serve. And it's, I'm completely honored to be the chief of police here and to get to serve these citizens. And I know the hearts of our officers and what they do out on the street and the compassion they show beyond just being a cop. We have a Beyond Service Award, and they've picked up people's wheelchairs, put them in the back of their truck, and got it home for them. During the ice storm, we got called and said, I can't get my medication. There's a lot of things well over and beyond, and that's the service that we provide beyond just a law enforcement objective. And our officers and our civilian staff do that outstanding each and every day, and they don't do that for the publicity. They do it just because it's the right thing to do. So I'm really honored to work here and serve this community, and hope that you find us responsive. But as I say, sometimes we make mistakes, and we do. We want to apologize. So.
Sarah Carlson messaged me right before the show. How could we as a community support our officers in a tangible way? I mean, thoughts and prayers are wonderful and all that, but is there any tangible ways that we can support the officers of our department?
Well, I mean, I will tell you this, when I'm out in the community and I'm going to lunch with our guys, and we go all the time, so many people, just a kind word of, hey, thank you. And I got that yesterday from a gentleman. We were coming out of a restaurant at lunch, and just the kind words and the thank yous and appreciate you, or don't be afraid to ask us a question, something that's bothering you, and let us know how we can help you or answer those questions. That interaction, and COVID was tough on us because we did not get to go out in the community and visit, and we're getting to do that more and more now. So that, first and foremost, the thoughts and the prayers are great, but a kind word is always appreciated. You know, we talked about if there's something you wanted to do monetarily, you've got the Burleson Police Foundation.
That's, I think, what you were thinking about, Burleson Police Foundation.
Yeah, and you know, that money is managed by a group of people that you know most of our citizens know, and it's all put right back into the useful things within our department for training, for equipment, to honor the great service of our officers, and that's that group's an open book, and you know, that's one way to be able to do that. But, you know, when we have events and we try to be present at those events, or we have an open house, you know, bring the kids by so we can high-five them and talk to them. I mean, really, that's the fun part of our job that often gets lost in us answering calls for service. So I think it's important for us to be able to get back into our community and hear what their issues are, because what we think our issues are and what they think their issues are may be different, and we need to understand that.
Well, I think what Sarah was getting at was that police fund. Yeah. So because you know, y'all need things, and we need to be able to support our officers in every way we can. I really appreciate you being here. This is a great show, and I learned a lot, and I hope the people that either listen to this show later or watch it later on YouTube or whatnot come away feeling reassured that their police force is on the job.
Good.
And we're going to do this again sometime in the near future.
I will look forward to it.
Okay, we got other things I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about then too. So thank you to the sponsors. Thank you, Taylor, and particularly thank you to Police Chief Billy Cordell for his visit today. We'll see y'all Thursday.
Absolutely.